Welcome to the Babbling Pastor Podcast!
Babble, 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 babble.
With your hosts, Michael and...
Rob.
Oh, man. All right. Yeah. I don't know why I'm so stoked. I just wanted to make they told you on social media, you got to like hook them at the first minute or they'll leave.
You did it.
Did I hook you? Did I hook you? Okay.
That has got to be a screenshot. Somebody's doing that.
Tell me you love me. Okay, here we go. So, I'm sorry. I haven't slept a lot. So, the weird thing, this is 3 episodes in on this batch record, and I don't know why I went crazy 3 in and not the first one. Anyway,
sometimes we hide our true selves for a long time, and then it just comes out. You know what I mean?
I feel like this is going to be a really good therapy session episode. I feel like we're gonna make a lot of breakthroughs. We're gonna have a lot of
headway here today.
Yes, we are. We're gonna break some generational curses. Okay, so none of the things that have been said in the first minute and a half of this podcast have anything to do with what we're talking about. So today we're gonna get political. Are you ready? Get your Kamala Harris flag, Trump flag out. Let's go. All right. This is what we call your Uncle Tim episode, where your Uncle Tim comes out and talks. All right. So, I've not seen this video we're about to watch. Just so we're clear, I don't have a clue what's going on. It's 2 minutes 50 seconds. It's about Nancy Mace. Actually, here, you know what this is. Set this clip up for us. I don't know why I'm talking. You set this clip up for us.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know. I'm just talking out my rear end here.
Okay, so this particular video is from ABC News. And a reporter comes up and talks to Congresswoman Nancy Mace from South Carolina, who is making a stink in Congress. She is upsetting the status quo and being all mean and unaccepting because she's demanding that the new congressman, who fancies himself as a congresswoman, so she doesn't want to use the restroom with this person, right? Okay, because this is a guy and in the women's restroom kind of a thing, right? So this has been a sort of fight all over the place, and in several different. I like Target was one of the first major moments when it like affected the populace that I know of. When at least the first major news moment, kind of a thing, when Target announced that kind of bathrooms are bathrooms kind of a thing. And then a lot of Christians boycotted Target for 13 minutes. And then, this has come full circle, right? It's all over the place. And now this is actually kind of a big deal, because now there's a person that was voted into Congress, a male who believes he's female, and so now you're going to see people in Congress. I think this is fascinating, because now you're going to see people in Congress have to put their money where their mouth is a little bit, right? So if you claim to be a Christian and you're in Congress, Mike Johnson, right, the House leader, right? You're going to be put into, but this is no longer like proverbial for you. This is no longer just something that you get to have an ethereal idea about, but not have to put into practice on a, not that they haven't had to do that in their lives or whatever. I'm not saying that, but this is very publicly, like at some point, you're going to either have to address on the floor, you're going to have to either address that person as congressman or congresswoman. Right? Like there are going to be moments like that in the near future where that happens, and you're gonna see where You're going to see if the people that have gone to New St. Andrews College, or I'm just kidding. But it is kind of a money where your mouth is thing. But this particular video is of Nancy Mace, who has introduced a resolution to ban biological males from going to for utilizing the women's restroom in the Congress building, in the Capitol building. So that's that's the big stink.
All right, so this is a 2-minute 50-second video. Let's go ahead and watch the whole thing, and then we'll talk about it. I think, depending on how this goes, again, I've not seen this, so I don't know what talking points will come up, but I'd like to, at some point, address, all right, well, how does the church in general deal with this then as well? But obviously, there's a whole, like you said, this isn't some small thing. Like, the fact that it's happening on the Capitol, it's not like you said, it's not some ethereal out there thing that they can just push off. It's like on their doorstep. Because of that.
The question is, with your piece of legislation about banning women from using...
100% yes.
My question to you is...
And it doesn't go far enough. I'll be filing more bills.
You have said that it was created in response to Congresswoman-elect McBride.
100%. And
should legislation be created targeted at one specific person?
It doesn't mention anyone in the legislation, but
you've said it was aimed at her.
No, I have said it's a result of this. I'm not going to allow biological men into women's private spaces. I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no. I am not going to stand for it. And the Speaker said it would be in the House rules package. If it's not, I'll be ready with a motion, a privileged motion, to force a vote on this. This is not okay. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And I'm not going to allow any man in any female private spaces.
Now, Speaker.
End of story. And by the way, I'm getting death threats from men pretending to be women. Why is it that these crazy people, the insanity, the radical left, are willing to kill women over a man's right to be in a women's restroom?
Speaker Johnson has said he wants to treat every new member with the words dignity and respect. Forcing this congressperson to go into a male restroom, is that dignity and respect?
Forcing women to share private spaces with men is not dignity and not respect. And I'm absolutely going to stand in the way of anyone who thinks it's okay for a man to be in our locker room, in our changing rooms, in our dressing rooms, in women's bathrooms. And in fact, if you agree with that, you're crazy, because that's not okay. It's not okay.
Congresswoman,
Thank you, Congresswoman. We're going to peel away from this conversation, Kira. So a little bit of the context of what we were just talking about, and I'm going to have my cameraman step out of the active driveway here, was that Nancy Mace put forward this piece of legislation. It was aimed, she said, although the name is not in the legislation, at a new member of Congress, Sarah McBride of Delaware, who is a transgender woman. She has said that the legislation would prevent women from using male restrooms and vice versa in the United States Capitol. Speaker Johnson has said, he made a statement earlier today where he said he believes, a quote, man is a man and woman is a woman, but he also called for, as you heard me ask the congressman about, dignity and respect for new members of Congress, and that would include this new member of Congress, Sarah McBride from Delaware, who is a transgender woman. All of that to say, this is now an issue that Congress is forced to grapple with here, and one that they've never been forced to grapple with before, because Sarah...
Okay, so he's basically just given a count after that, so it's not a whole lot really after that. So that's right. Not the whole. It was like a minute or 2 minutes 30 seconds, but you get the general idea, I think. So, wow, what was really interesting? Again, I think just a couple things off the bat that were really interesting was that she was not. I think here's a tactic that she utilized really well, that I don't think we utilize enough, that was very impressive, which was that she wasn't going to give ground. Like, it was, what about? And she's like, no, that's not what we're talking about. And so every time the question was posed, like, it was posed in a way of like, is it showing dignity and respect to make this person use the other bathroom? She goes, you're thinking of your entire premise is incorrect. So she wasn't even going to operate on the premise that the way you're founding the question is accurate, because the way you're founding the question isn't even accurate. And so I'm not even going to address the question as if it is a valid question, which I think is an amazing tactic that we've completely lost whenever when you're having to combat different opinions. I mean, you see this even in the earliest apologists when they're combating Roman thought on Christianity. They go, no, that's not the question you're posing is foundationally wrong. This is what we're actually saying. And so I think that, just first off, there's a lot to discuss here, but I think that, if anything, to be picked up is a really good thing to pick up, that she's not even giving the ground that the question is even valid. Because for her, the question isn't even valid. I'm not talking about somebody. I'm saying a man can't use a women's restroom. I don't care what that man dresses like. It's essentially her stated opposition. Like, yeah, you can paint a donkey. It's still a donkey. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciated when I first saw that video. And there are several others like it. That was just the first one that I saw, so I bookmarked it. But when I first saw that, I appreciated that very same thing, that the reporter refers to Sarah McBride. I don't know the given name, but refers to him as a congresswoman, like does all the pronoun things, right? And the fact that she just, like, no questions asked, like, look, yeah, that's cute, but a man doesn't belong in the women's restroom. I think that is very, very helpful, right? I think one of the a corresponding thing that happens is Vodi Bakum talks about this in several. He uses this as an illustration at times when he's talking about cultural things. That anytime a pastor or preacher is talking about homosexuality from the pulpit, right, you have to, or what you typically will see is 5 to 10 minutes of, now look, I have gay friends, I just like, there's 5 to 10 minutes of almost apologizing that I have to talk about this, right? Before you actually just plainly say, this is sinful, this isn't okay, this isn't natural, this isn't how God made it. And as Christians, I think that we need to get back to chuckling at the absurdity and just speaking the truth in those moments. And I don't have any clue what her religious background is. I don't know if she's a Buddhist, and for this conversation, it doesn't matter. But she's clearly a person who understands, first grade science, right? And so this is something that I wish more Christians would do this. I understand the heart behind pronoun hospitality. Okay. I understand the heart behind that, but it's not helpful, and it's not truthful. And increasingly what you'll find, I forget, there's some, I'm not just saying this off the cuff. I'd have to find the interview, but there was someone of a good repute that was interviewed, and I was just watching this recently. I don't know why I can't think of it, but who talked about how it's becoming increasingly more clear that people who have come to Christ, who have come out of that kind of transgender movement, tend to be thankful for the people in their lives that didn't bow the knee to it, that just spoke, lovingly as possible, but spoke the truth, right? Who wouldn't say her when it's not a her, right? It doesn't do anybody any favors to add to the delusion, right? And continue to prop it up. So I did appreciate that, and I think I'm excited to see what will happen with this. I guess to look at the actual resolution that she's presenting, it's not lengthy, it's not offensive. Even I would argue, like it's only offensive if you're that person.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is really key, it goes back to our conversation that we had on the whole New St. Andrews thing, is that there is an ability to be had. And I think really what she demonstrates just in this interview is the absolute fortitude to say, I don't care. Like, I do not care if you think this is absurd. I think your position is far more absurd, and be able to stand on that. Now, at the same time, I don't know their interactions or if she's ever interacted with this guy at all that thinks he's a woman. But I would say that really the Christian position throughout history really has been, no, your position's absurd. I will not accept this worldview, while at the same time caring for the very people that I say your worldview is crap. And so what you see, for example, is the Romans completely confused. I think it's the letter between Pliny the Younger and Trajan, in which they're just confused because these Christians absolutely will not accept Roman gods, but are caring for Roman citizens. And so there's nothing illegal that they can get them on, except for the reality that the Christians absolutely refuse to accept the Roman deities. And that's the only thing that they can illegally sanction them on. Everything else is they're on the up and up. They're caring for people. They're not committing adultery. They're not stealing. They're not doing any crimes. That's the only thing. And I think that's really the great example that we have here is that, again, I don't know Nancy Mace's religious background either, but I think the Christian position is to have a backbone to stand there and go, no, your worldview is just asinine. I refuse to accept it. But if I can help you in any way outside of your lunacy, I will. And so one of the ways, again, to do that, I think, is to be able to say, like, I think you're insane. I think your position is insane. But I do want to, if it's in my power at all, to help you in the non-insane things, I'm more than happy to do that. So if I think one of the great examples of that is I know a few people that have, for example, needed rides to job interviews or needed rides to work that don't have cars that do. For example, it's a guy that thinks he's a woman. And I know believers that have given them rides to do that provide them transportation, right? And these people know that these believers don't agree with the worldview and position they've chosen to hold. That these believers are, again, we were talking about tension before, living in the tension of saying, I think you're crazy, but I want to help you. Like, if there's a way to make sure you don't become homeless, I want to be able to do that. I will give you I'll give you a right to work. I'll give you a right to an interview. Those things that I am capable of doing, I will do, but I'm not going to assist you down the path of craziness. And so I think there's so the only thing, what's that verse where it's like, live a life to where if anybody brings an accusation against you, it looks like, they look foolish for doing so. I think that's kind of the part where Nancy Mace probably is that you can try to make her look bad by saying this, how dare you be, dehumanizing. And she's going, I'm not, you think it's dehumanizing because you're living in crazy town, but I'm not being dehumanizing. I'm actually the sane one in the room right now. And I think standing on that principle is important for believers, is that even same thing if somebody tries to come into a church and do the same thing or whatever, it's just standing on principle and conviction and saying no. And I think it's a really good example. Now, one of the things that you brought out before that I think will be very interesting is because she's almost forced people that are even within just the general conservative camp to put their name on the line here, because one of the interesting things, I think you touched on it in the last episode, is that Christians now in a political climate in which Trump is going to be the president, you have people sort of being like, oh, good, everything's fine now. I don't have to do anything. And you're like, well, I don't know. The Republican Party that Trump has sort of created is a Republican Party that makes room for this sort of thing. And so now what you really have is people that aren't just in the conservative party, but are actual evangelicals that are going to have to stand up against their own group and say, look, we line up on a lot of things. This ain't one of them, brother. And be able to actually say, you're not just fighting the woke left anymore. Now you're fighting actual conservatives, right? Or so-called conservatives on this topic.
Yeah.
And so what it's going to divide now it's not like, hey guys, I'm on your team. Now you're actually punching your own teammates saying, no, you guys are crazy too. And so it will be interesting to see how this comes out on a vote wise, because what it will demonstrate, because like you said, I haven't seen the bill, but I'll trust your word here that she's not making it overly complicated. And so it's not like somebody can, say, well, the bill's not super clear, because really all it's clear on is who uses what bathroom. It's pretty simple. And so,
it's 2 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like it's going to be like this big, I had a moral quandary. It's not that. It's just where do you land? Just let us know where you land so we know where to vote next time. And so I think it's that will be, and again, I'll say this and I'll shut up. I don't think she's trying to make some big political thing about it. I honestly think, just by hearing that interview, if I'm to take her at her word, she's just saying, I'm not going to play the game here. I've already been assaulted. I've already been in a situation where this wasn't safe. And I don't think there's going to be people that are saying she's making some sort of, connection between assault and transgenders. I think all she's saying is like, I'm just not going to allow this in the space where women are supposed to be. And so if you're not a woman, you're not in this space. It's simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't pile things on top of it. It's just as simple as that. And it's crazy. It's crazy that we live in a time where that even has to be a statement. But there's that. Closing thoughts, Rob.
Yeah. So this resolution, the first paragraph is 3 lines, and I'll read the first paragraph. Okay. Because it is the resolution, right? This is what I'm asking. It just says, resolution prohibiting members, officers, and employees of the House from using single-sex facilities other than those corresponding to their biological sex and for other purposes. And then it gives a whereas, right, with some reasons: jeopardizing the safety and dignity of members, and so on and so forth. It really is plain and simple, cut and dry, not a difficult thing to wrap your mind around. It's and yet it is so explosive. It's so explosive. And this is, I think, one of the reasons, given some of the things that we've talked about in just recent episodes, right, with the new St. Andrew's College thing and the evangelical nice thing, and with all of that, it's important, I think, to understand that I don't believe that we would be here. I don't believe that we would be in this particular situation where this pretty basic science-based, this isn't rocket science, okay? This very basic resolution that it would even need to be a thing is a testament to how long we, and when I say we, I would include the church in that, but just in general, people with the like common sense conservatism, but how long we have sort of just sat on the sidelines and watched the freak show in America. And I don't, that it's without saying anything, without actually we should have had the posture that she displayed all along. And I think that, in the same way that when, if you have a son or a daughter who comes up to you, like let's just assume, okay, my son comes up to me, he's 3 years old, and he's like, Dad, I want to play with this Barbie, or can I get Barbies, or why can't I wear a dress, or something like that. And as a dad, I'm not going to like sit down with them and explore their fluidity, right? I'm just going to go, well, because that's what chicks do, dude, and that's the end of the discussion. And he's probably going to be fine with that, right? Like, it's not going to come up anymore. What was it famously? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a picture of you being like, you just see him coming up and going, "Here's a firearm, go shoot that." No, sorry. Here's a
bacon.
Here's a 9mm. Go kill a deer and come back talk about Barbies. Sorry, go ahead. That's just that's how my brain works.
But famously, there's this clip that tons and tons and tons of people have seen at this point, but it's from several years ago. Morgan Freeman being interviewed by Don Lemon, and who's a raging racist, and he's interviewed by Don Lemon and asked about racism, and Morgan Freeman's response is, "Well, stop talking about it. Just stop talking about it all the time. It's, you're here. We're successful. Stop talking about it." And his whole point was, part of the reason that this thing that's so ugly gets perpetuated and continued all the time is because we're making it a major subject all the time, right? And I think, we should have just put the cigarette out a long time ago, and I don't think that we would. I don't think we'd be where we are.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to track socially, like where, because there's all these sort of, there's trackers within like the news and writing and things like that. It'd be really interesting to find out like the trace of how this coincides with like just modern evangelicals, because like you said, now it does feel like you're behind the eight ball. Now it's like, oh, this is always a thing, and like now there's got to be a law about it, and like how did anybody even get elected? That there's a whole bunch of things like that sort of swirl around and go, there's a lot of why hows here that'd be interesting to explore. I think one of them though is, you're right, is that niceness aspect of like, just be. I think that Vody quote that you talked about really does sum it up. It's this idea of like, it gives, without you having to say your position, it gives away your position whenever you try to make excuses for like why people should listen to why things is sin. I think in that same quote, he goes, I don't have to do the same thing with adultery. I don't have to get up here and say I have adulterous friends and I love my adulterous friends and I have he goes, I don't have to do that, because if I say adultery, it's a sin, and I don't have to qualify it by telling you that. And so I think that really does pertain in any subject. If you're talking about pride or gluttony, I've seen people do that with gluttony too, where they're like, well, I like to eat too. And like, I've seen the same sort of thing done. With gluttony, and same thing done with gossip, where it's like, well, I know some of you guys like to talk a lot. Like it does give away your position on, is this a sin or not? Because you're afraid to hurt somebody's feelings in the congregation, instead of just getting up and saying the thing that needs to be said, and then coming at it with the gospel. And so this will, like I said, this will be super interesting. I know by the time this episode releases, I'm sure we'll be much further down the road as far as this vote and what happens. So again, as always, Battling Pastor Podcast behind on the breaking news, bringing it to you.
Oh yeah,
days, weeks, or months after it was important. But that's how we do, guys.
You know what? I think from now on, you should have a breaking news graphic that is just
old stuff
for the Battling Pastors. Yeah,
George news. Bush declares Iraq war over. Like, it's like that happened decades ago, guys. Hey, it's breaking news to us.
You know what? There's a podcast waiting to happen there.
Oh yeah, pretending like it's like new.
A comedy podcast. Yeah, for sure. Little 3-minute burst.
Can you imagine if we had time and effort to prep? We could do some great things, Rob. Well, anyway, guys, thanks Thanks for tuning into this episode. We'll talk to you next time. Goodbye and good luck.
Later.
And God bless and all the things.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, men are
all
men.
of it.